Skeletons of the Marital Closet. By Tang. Chapter 2041. Gale patted her hand. You and Orem have a stable relationship now. If you date for another year or two, get married, and have kids, won't everything fall into place? Me and Orem get married? Ivy shook her head, her smile carrying a hint of deeper meaning. I haven't thought about it, and I don't really dare to think about it. What's there to be afraid of? Dating without marriage in mind is just playing around. Gale finished speaking and looked at Shawn. Don't you agree? If a man and a woman are in a relationship and not considering marriage, they're just toying with each other's feelings. That definitely wasn't acceptable. Every relationship is precious, and once you decide to be together, you should include the other person in your future plans. Right, Shawn nodded. You're absolutely right. He then stood up and waved his phone. Fiona is messaging me non-stop. I need to take care of some work. You two take your time chatting. With Shawn gone, the conversation between the two women became more relaxed and casual. Is President Wood always this busy? Ivy asked. He's still working this late? Gale stuck out her tongue. He slept until 1 in the afternoon today, then spent the day with me shopping. He didn't go to the office at all. Ivy was surprised. Is that something President Wood would do? I'm puzzled too. He's never done this before. I don't know what he's thinking today. He probably feels guilty for not spending enough time with you, Ivy suggested. It's a sign that he cares about you. Gale, you're really lucky, very lucky. I think so too. Ivy, you will be too. You're so beautiful, talented and gentle. I'm sure you and Orem will have a bright future together. Gale kept bringing up Orem, praising his character, and expressing her belief that Orem was someone Ivy could rely on for life. However, these words felt rather unsettling to Ivy. As Joshua and Nicole played nearby and Shawn stepped into the foyer to take his call, Ivy looked around and then lowered her voice. Gale, I have a question. Go ahead. It might be a bit intrusive. It's okay, we're close enough for you to speak freely. Does the hotel incident still bother you? Ivy asked softly. Even though nothing happened between you and Orem, and you are still pure, there's still. She trailed off, but Gale understood her meaning. Ivy, does that incident still bother you? Gale asked cautiously. Do you resent my past relationship with Orem, or is it your situation with Paul that troubles you? I can't let it go. Gale was momentarily taken aback, her eyes filled with sympathy. Ivy, I want to say sorry, but saying sorry won't fix anything. I thought that when you accepted Orem's confession, you had already moved past it. She hadn't expected Ivy to still be struggling. Was Ivy's distress at Orem's house last time also due to issues with him? The more Gale thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Ivy, she said. I remember you told me that nothing happened between Orem and me that night because you had evidence or knew the truth. It's been so long now. Can you tell me what you know? Chapter 2042. Ivy stared at Gale, her eyes bright and clear. Gale, if I hold the truth in my hands, would you want me to reveal it? Gale nodded firmly. Yes. Do you want to know the whole truth? I do. Ivy blinked, then suddenly smiled. Okay, Gale, I know what to do now. Can you tell me now? Not yet. Why? Gale asked. Have you been threatened? She grew tense all of a sudden. Ivy shook her head. No. It's just too complicated to explain in a few words. But with your support, I suddenly feel stronger and know what I need to do. Even if President Wood tried to stop her, she would expose it. She would vent her anger, punish Paul, tear off Orem's hypocritical mask, let Gale know Orem's ugliness. Ivy decided to act on her own. She resolved silently. Smells of food wafted from the kitchen. Dinner's ready, Ivy smiled. Joshua, Nicole, did you wash your hands? They replied, We're going now. I'll take you. No, Gale stopped her. They're big enough to wash their hands themselves. Don't worry about it. Ivy watched the kids with a smile, while Gale felt an uneasy feeling she couldn't quite place. The truth? How did Ivy know it? What did she plan to do? By the time they finished dinner and left, it was completely dark outside. Street lamps lit the paths. Joshua was reluctant to leave. Ivy, how did time pass so fast? I don't want to leave, sob. Nicole said, You're a boy, stop crying like tat. I'm expressing my reluctance, Joshua replied. The helpers have left. Ivy, are you sleeping alone at home tonight? Yes. Isn't Uncle Orem coming to keep you company? Ivy said, This is my home. I sleep here. He sleeps at his home. Hearing this, Joshua suddenly became bashful. If you're scared, I can stay with you tonight. If there are monsters, I can chase them away and protect you. Gale grabbed his collar and pulled him back to her side. Sorry about that, Gale said. Don't mind him, he speaks without thinking, all just child's play. She felt deeply embarrassed. Couldn't Joshua show some restraint? Coming to someone's house and wanting to stay the night? If he were older, it would be considered harassment. Joshua protested. I'm a brave knight, I must protect my princess. Is that wrong? Your princess already has a prince. The prince isn't here tonight, can't I take his place? No, Gale said. Let's go home. Chapter 2043. Joshua reluctantly said goodbye to Ivy. Bye-bye, Ivy. I'll come over again when I have time. You can come to my house too. Love you. Moi moi. He kept blowing kisses. Shawn, Gale looked at him. Does your son know no shame? I'm starting to suspect he might have a genetic mutation. Both Shawn and Gale were quite reserved by nature, especially in expressing their feelings. They loved subtly and rarely voiced it openly, but Joshua was different. He worked his charm on everyone from the old Lucas down to babies. He could make anyone happy if he wanted to. The car moved along the road. Gale asked, What do you think about Ivy's condition today? What do I think? Yes. I didn't observe closely, Shawn replied. Why? Gale couldn't help but laugh. I allow you to look and give your opinion. It's fine, you don't have to create your distance so strictly. She's better than last time, Shawn said. Beyond that, I don't know. Even if he knew, he couldn't say. Gale reached over to pinch his cheek. I think you're different today. You're serious but a bit distracted. You seem a bit indifferent. However, you spent the entire day with me. He lifted one hand from the steering wheel, held her wrist and kissed it. I would never be indifferent to you. Make sure you get up on time tomorrow and go to the office, Gale reminded him. One day of indulgence is enough, you need to get back on track. Shawn nodded, and then turned to look at her. Gaily, I always feel like I don't spend enough time with you. From now on, I'll make more time for us to eat together, take walks and go shopping, okay? He used to think they had decades ahead of them. Delaying a day or two didn't seem like a big deal. Now, Shawn realized that every day counted. His time was running out, and he wanted to spend it all with her. Before Gale could respond, Joshua squeezed his head between the seats. Shawn, you're so lame, Joshua teased. During the day, you're in the same building with her, you can see her anytime. You even have lunch together. At night, you sleep together, and in the morning, she's the first person you see. How else do you want to spend time with her? Joshua scratched his chin. Do you want to tie her to you? Shawn raised his hand to swat at him. Joshua quickly dodged. Hey, you can't hit me. Gale smiled at the scene. The bond between father and son was growing stronger, which was wonderful. She asked, Joshua, do you want your dad to be busy every day, leaving early and coming back late, attending countless meetings, and traveling often, so that seeing him is rare, and having a proper meal together is a luxury? Not exactly, Joshua admitted. But mommy, don't you think Shawn seems really free these days? How is he free? Last night he worked until the early hours before coming home. That was just one night. Besides, who knows if he was really working? Shawn's lips twitched downward. He hadn't been working. He had been sitting in his office, lost in thought. He didn't want to go home, or rather he was afraid to. He didn't know how to face Gale or the kids. Unexpectedly, it wasn't Gale who grew suspicious, but Joshua who hit the nail on the head. Chapter 2044. Joshua. Gale turned around to look at him. What's been going on in that little head of yours day after day? Joshua replied seriously. I'm thinking about you, mommy. Shawn leaves work on time every day, never stays late. Suddenly he's busy until midnight. Don't you think that's a bit strange? As he said this, Gale felt something wasn't quite right. But she trusted Shawn enough. The company was big, with lots of business, so the occasional unexpected situation was normal. Even if she pushed the thought further, what would Shawn do? Would he be seeing other women? Gale wasn't concerned at all because Shawn wouldn't give any woman a chance. He loved only her, and she was confident that she held the only place in his heart. All right, I think you've been watching too many dramas lately, Gale said. Joshua, from now on, you need to cut down on your TV drama time. No, I refuse. Joshua, your protest is futile. Joshua was getting frustrated. He really wanted to watch TV. After some thought, he vented his frustration on Shawn. It's all your fault. Shawn raised an eyebrow. Blame me for what? He hadn't spoken a word throughout, focusing intently on driving, because the three people in the car were the most important in his life. Even more important than himself. You came back very late last night. I told mommy to watch you carefully so as to not give other women a chance. And then, she said I've been watching too many palace dramas and deprived me of my TV rights. Shawn replied calmly, watching less TV is for your own good. What's wrong with some entertainment while I'm studying? Joshua replied, his logic clear, and his words articulate. Shawn, you need to be aware. Men need to resist temptation, understand? Thank you for the reminder. Anyway, what happened last night? I think you know best in your heart, Joshua cautioned. Don't have a wandering eye. As soon as he finished speaking, Gale knocked him on the head. Joshua, your dad and I have a very good relationship. The situation you're worried about simply won't happen in our family. Don't overthink it, don't jump to conclusions. We're living our lives, not acting in a TV drama, got it? Joshua looked crestfallen, holding his head in his hands. Seeing him like this, Gale wanted to laugh a little, but she restrained herself. He was imaginative and had an overly active mind, always coming up with something new. Perhaps he felt uneasy because Shawn, who usually left work on time, suddenly worked late and wasn't at home. Maybe that's why he started speculating randomly. But Gale forgot one thing. Men understand men the best. Even though Joshua was still young, the common traits of men were innate. Shawn smirked. He looked like he was smiling, but there was no trace of humor in his eyes. Joshua was surprisingly sharp to notice something was off. However, Joshua had misinterpreted things. He thought Shawn was out playing around, so he was reminding and scolding him. Actually, Shawn was just alone in his office. At that moment, Shawn suddenly felt he was really getting old, because his son was already keeping an eye on him. Joshua was only in kindergarten, yet he was so clever, difficult to discipline. Shawn wondered how he would grow up year by year, and what kind of person he would become. Will the student surpass the master? Will he be more outstanding? Will he be wiser, emotionally smarter than him? Chapter 2045. All right, Joshua shrugged and said, Old man, you do your thing. Actually, I hope you could be a bit busier. You want me to be busier? Yeah, just a bit busier than now. Not too much, just a moderate increase, Joshua gestured. You're always so leisurely, it makes me uneasy, Shawn. Shawn asked, What makes you uneasy? Your business. I'll have to inherit it in the future. If you continue being so idle and not managing the company well, when I take over I'll be swamped. Shawn, can't you think about your son? So that was Joshua's concern. He feared Shawn wouldn't manage the company well, and it would burden him in the future. Gale sighed repeatedly. How did I end up with such? She couldn't find the right words. Smart? Mischievous? Shawn replied calmly, Joshua, do you now realize you're my son? I should consider you. Then let me ask you, what do you want to call me? Daddy, Joshua smoothly said. Both Shawn and Gale were somewhat surprised. He actually called him Daddy? No more stubbornness? No more calling him Shawn? Was it a change in tone? Seeing Shawn and Gale's surprised expressions, Joshua adopted a nonchalant, cool demeanor. You're my dad, it's an unchangeable fact, very normal. Say it again? Shawn asked. You're my dad, daddy, dad, Joshua repeated. Satisfied? Even Nicole whispered happily. Daddy, Big Brother acknowledged you. I heard it. Shawn tightened his grip on the steering wheel, suppressing the joy in his heart. He couldn't let the little brat know how much he looked forward to being called Daddy. He had waited for this moment for so long, he found it very pleasing to the ear. Otherwise, the little brat would be gloating. There should be some difference in how he treated his son and his daughter. Sons needed to be brought up strictly, while daughters needed to be pampered. Such warmth filled Gale's heart. Life was truly beautiful with a husband, children, and a future full of happiness and beauty ahead. Wasn't she the luckiest woman in the world? Gale smiled sweetly, with faint dimples on her cheeks. Shawn glanced at her sideways. He also felt it was beautiful. He wished time could freeze at this moment forever and ever. However, amidst the beauty in his heart, there was a touch of sadness. His time was running out. He had to make a decision now. Should he face the illness together with Gale, or should he push her away, forcing her to find a new life elsewhere? No matter which decision he made, Shawn would suffer unbearably. Either way, he would lose her. The only difference was, if Gale stayed with him to face the illness, his pain would lessen, but the reduced pain would be transferred to Gale. If he let Gale leave him, his pain would increase manifold, and Gale would suffer as well. However, her pain would gradually fade with time. She would forget him. Time was the best healer. Chapter 2046. The trip back home was serene and filled with warmth for Gale. Shawn, in contrast, felt tumultuous. By the time they arrived home, the two little ones were already fast asleep in the back seat, slumped over in different directions. Just a moment ago they were chattering non-stop, now they're all curled up asleep, Gale chuckled. No matter how clever they are, they're still just kids. They were her little darlings. She opened the back door and gently lifted Nicole out. For some reason when she lifted Nicole she felt a bit unsteady and swayed. Careful, Shawn noticed and reached out, pulling her and their daughter into his embrace. Gale leaned securely against him. With you here, how could I fall? No worries, maybe Nicole's just gotten heavier as she's grown. I'm having trouble carrying her now, Gale said. Let me. She tilted her chin. You take Joshua. I can manage for this short walk really. I can handle both, Shawn replied. Yeah, I know you're strong. Shawn leaned in and lifted Joshua out of the car. Each holding one child they walked towards the door. Gaily, Shawn said, what if next time you're carrying Nicole, and you're not stable, and I happen not to be around? What would you do then? He was already worrying about these things. Every day brought countless little things she couldn't handle alone. If he wasn't there, how would she manage? He wasn't always here, so what would she do? Though Shawn knew Gale was strong and capable of handling things, doing it alone versus having someone to help were entirely different states. Who wouldn't hope to always have someone to rely on, someone solid and dependable? How could I be unstable every time? Gale had no idea what Shawn was thinking and replied, besides, Nicole is growing up and very self-reliant. She hardly needs me to carry her anymore. Yeah, Nicole's growing up. Besides, we have servants at home. If I can't manage, I'll just call for help. They entered the living room, each holding a child. Mr. Shawn, Mrs. Gale. The butler noticed and quickly approached. You're back. Oh, the young master and miss are both fast asleep. He signaled the servants, take the young master and miss to wash up and put them to bed. Yes. Gale handed the children over to the servants and turned to Shawn. See, even when you're not here this home still runs smoothly with plenty of help. Shawn looked at her calmly, paused for a moment, then smiled faintly. So, am I not important? He teased, lightening the mood. Is that it? How could you not be important? You're irreplaceable, my husband, the person I entrust my life to, Gale said, throwing herself into his arms, hooking her arms around his neck. For a moment there I didn't even think about it. Anyone could have done it, she continued. Besides, you can't always be by my side every second, noticing every detail about me. As long as you're there when I need you most, that's all that matters. Shawn's hand rested on her slender waist. Joshua says you're too free, but I don't think so. Gale kissed his cheek. Work is important, but so is life. Being busy until early morning like last night. I'm not used to it and I don't quite like it. Chapter 2047. Sorry, Gale, I'll be more careful next time. He hugged her, lightly brushing her forehead with his chin. Gale wondered if she was overthinking things. It was just normal work busyness that made Shawn come home a bit late, and she hadn't really minded or dwelled on it. But it seemed this issue kept resurfacing in her mind. Just as she was thinking, she suddenly felt lighter. Ah, Gale exclaimed. Shawn scooped her up horizontally and headed upstairs in large strides. It was another night of intense entanglement. Gale was tired and sleepy. Her eyes were barely open, but just before drifting off to sleep she managed to say, I have to go to work tomorrow on time, no more skipping. Okay. With Shawn's response, she immediately fell into a deep sleep. She left everything else to him. She was going to fall apart. She didn't know what was going on with Shawn. These past 2 nights have been endless. Before, he might ask for too much, but he would care about her physical and mental exhaustion, and he wouldn't insist on torturing her for 2 consecutive nights. Gale entered the realm of dreams. Shawn, however, couldn't fall asleep for a long time, constantly kissing her temples. Gale, his Gale, he couldn't bear to lose her, his Gale, who he couldn't let go of the most. The next day, in Wood Group, Gale checked in for work and sat at her workstation, glancing around. She breathed a sigh of relief when she saw no one was paying attention to her. Peach had gone to the factory and wouldn't be back until the afternoon, so no one would tease her. She put her bag down. Just as she sat down, she heard a voice behind her. Oh, isn't this Mrs. Wood? To what do we owe the honor of your presence? Why are you at work? Gale turned around and said, hello, he, she said. It's you, you're early. Summer tapped her head. Boss lady, isn't it amazing to be the boss? You're the biggest shareholder, so you can come and go as you please? Yesterday, why didn't you come to the company? Not a word? Do you know how much you needed to be there for the meeting yesterday? The phone calls went unanswered. How many messages did we send to you? I overslept. You woke up without answering the phone? Gale swallowed her saliva. I woke up it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Summer was stunned for a moment, then his eyes suddenly changed. Tisk, Gale, you're so intense. Are you not an old married couple? There's no need for that, is there? It's not like that, is it? How come you slept until the afternoon? As far as I know, Shawn didn't come to the company yesterday either. You two, playing truant from work to enjoy each other's company, so you're not even considering work, right? Surprise, surprise, Gale replied. That won't happen again in the future. Before Summer could tease her again, she quickly said, I'm going to catch up on yesterday's work today. I'll do it. I'll make up for overtime. I'll turn on my computer right away. Chapter 2048. Summer chuckled. Look at you. Anyone who doesn't know might think I bully you just because my position is higher than yours. Gale, come on, show some authority. I heard from Joe that Shawn has all the shares. Shh. Gale quickly covered her mouth. This was a sensitive matter, it wouldn't do to discuss it casually. If someone with ill intentions overheard, it could lead to unnecessary trouble. Okay, I won't say anything. Summer understood her meaning. Let's talk about work then. Oh, great designer, where's your design draft? It was due last week. You've been delaying for quite some time. Gale looked embarrassed. I haven't finished it yet. Show me the draft. I haven't even started the preliminary draft. What? Summer looked shocked. Gale, how did you become so lax? There's so much going on, taking care of 2 children and Shawn. Gale's voice trailed off. At this moment, Joe suddenly appeared from nowhere. Is Shawn clinging to you? Or are you clinging to Shawn? Or perhaps you both can't live without each other. Great, she couldn't handle Summer alone. Now Joe was joining in. They were teasing her so much she felt herself blushing and wanting to disappear. All right, I'll start on the design now. I'll be focused and I'll strive to produce it as quickly and with the best quality possible. Gale vowed earnestly. You two go, don't disturb me. Summer crossed her arms. Oh, so now you want to chase me away? I've just begun speaking. You've said so much already. Okay, I won't say any more. Summer nodded and looked at Joe. Go on, you say. Gale remained silent. Joe burst into laughter and gave Summer a playful hug. You two, your relationship is getting better and closer. You're neglecting work, not caring about the company. Ah, are you trying to exhaust us subordinates? I admit. Shawn has been a bit lazy lately, not turning into the workaholic he used to be, always focused on work. But when there's something urgent, he still fulfills his responsibilities diligently. TCH, what urgent matters could there be? Joe asked. Wood Group is sailing smoothly now. He just needs to steer, bark orders and send us to run errands. But 2 nights ago, he worked overtime until dawn. What? Overtime? Joe burst into laughter. Shawn working overtime? Impossible. Gale paused, feeling perplexed. A deeply unsettling feeling rose from the depths of her heart. She didn't say anything, and Joe didn't notice her unease, continuing, Gale, during those 4 years you were gone, Shawn practically lived in the office. Working every day, meetings with clients even on weekends. But since you returned, especially recently, he leaves right on time. Even before time, he's nowhere to be found, saying he's picking up the kids. Yesterday, he even skipped work. Fiona was frantically calling but couldn't reach him. Even you were led astray and weren't at the office. Gale steadied her thoughts and asked softly, Has there been no urgent matters at the company lately? What urgent matters? Even if there were, others would handle them, Joe replied. If there was something so urgent that Shawn had to work overtime until dawn, it would be very serious, something concerning the survival of the Wood Group. Gale didn't ask directly, but from Joe's words, she got her answer. The company has been calm and peaceful lately. There were no urgent matters, let alone anything serious enough to require Shawn's personal attention and late-night work. Chapter 2049. She wondered what Shawn was doing that night, that he came home only at dawn. Where did he go? Was he lying? Just a moment ago, Gale merely felt something was off, but now, she was overwhelmed with a strong sense of panic. Joshua's words about how women flocked to Shawn, and how men would not be suddenly busy, suddenly flooded her mind. Even though Gale tried hard to tell herself not to overthink things, that it was impossible, and that Shawn deserved her full trust, she was having a hard time controlling herself. Gale? Summer called her several times. What are you thinking about? You seem so distracted. Nothing, she shook her head. It's nothing. I'm getting ready to work on the design. I really can't delay any further. She wasn't in the mood to joke around with Joe and Summer anymore, so she turned and sat down in front of her computer. Her mind was completely blank. What on earth was Shawn doing that night when he came home so late? Clearly there wasn't any urgent matter at the company, and if there was, it honestly wouldn't require his personal attention. Joe was the company's leader and knew everything about the company's situation. He wouldn't lie. So, Shawn must have lied. But why would he lie? Was there something she couldn't know? Summer also noticed Gale's change in mood. She glanced at Joe and waved him off, signaling him to leave quickly. Joe reluctantly left. He wondered what was up. They were chatting just fine a moment ago, and now the mood has suddenly shifted. He concluded in his mind that women were just temperamental and he couldn't understand them. "Gale?" Summer asked. "What's wrong? Your mood suddenly changed." Gale blinked. "Huh? Really? Is there something wrong?" "I didn't notice." She touched her face. Summer was about to respond when Gale added, "You're overthinking it. I'm just trying to get into work quickly and not waste time with chit-chat. I need to be more serious." "Ah, I see." Summer nodded. "Then focus on your work. I won't bother you." Oh, by the way." Gale stopped her. "Summer, have you been with Joe every evening after work these days?" "Yes." Gale smiled, making a face. "You two are so sweet. You're together all day at work and still can't get enough of each other at night." "Stop it. You're making fun of me now." Summer's face turned slightly red, and she reached out to pinch Gale lightly. "Shawn isn't so bad either," Summer said. Joe was right. "During the 4 years you weren't here, I watched Shawn turn into a workaholic. That was when the turnover rate at Wood Group was the highest. And now. TTS Cat see Chapter 2050. Summer didn't know, but the more she said that, the more unsettled Gale felt inside. Everyone was telling her that Shawn wasn't that busy, didn't need to work overtime, let alone stay in the office until late at night. So, what was he doing that night? Did he have some secret that she couldn't know? Just as she was pondering this, several exclamations suddenly rang out in the office. "Wow, look at this. Oh my God. This is so explosive. The hype is skyrocketing." Several colleagues were glued to their computer screens, their faces full of gossip and excitement. Gale was puzzled and asked, "What's going on? What happened?" Summer immediately picked up her phone. "Let me see." Oh my God. Gale grew even more curious. What on earth had happened? She hurried over and stared at Summer's phone screen. News stories flashed one after another relentlessly. Gale quickly caught the most crucial information. Ivy announced her withdrawal from her latest film, leaving the female lead position temporarily vacant. Ivy has filed a lawsuit against director Paul, alleging coercion. So far, the production team has not responded. Summer widened her eyes in disbelief and looked at Gale. Gale was dumbfounded too. She knew about Ivy and Paul's situation. She had even suggested using legal means to make Paul pay the price. At that time, Ivy had said she didn't want this matter to escalate, ruin her career, and destroy her reputation and future. But now, what was going on? Why did Ivy suddenly expose the matter herself and allow the media to report on it? Seeing Gale's bewildered expression, Summer asked, "You didn't know beforehand? Ivy didn't discuss this with you?" "No. She didn't mention it at all? Not a word," Gale replied. "I saw her just last night, went to her house with Joshua and Nicole for dinner. She seemed perfectly normal, chatting and laughing with me, never mentioning anything serious." Summer couldn't understand either. Why didn't she tell you beforehand? She could have used some help, some advice. Can she handle this alone? Now Ivy was the most talked about female star in the entertainment industry. It wasn't just fans and passers-by watching her, it was her peers in the industry. How many female stars were eyeing her, waiting for her to fall, hoping to step on her and seize her resources? All the female stars were hoping she would rise higher now, so she would fall harder in the future. Now Ivy has withdrawn from the production, leaving the female lead role of the movie up for grabs. Gale wondered how many female stars were scrambling to take that role. On top of that, Ivy had sued Paul. When these two things were thought about together, everyone could guess what had happened. But in truth, what actually happened didn't matter. No one cared. Was it Paul who coerced Ivy, or did Ivy deliberately smear him? Everyone was just enjoying the show. What they cared about was who would replace Ivy as the female lead.